Okie dokie. Hey everybody. We're going to talk a bit about breakdown for the 18.3 milestone for the paper cuts team. We're going to be focusing in the plan vertical for this milestone. And by the way, Paul and I realized about half an hour ago that this is a 5-week milestone, so that will help. Nick is joining us as well in case we've got any questions or he has some input on this. So I'm going to share my screen and walk through a little bit of what I've gathered. I want to call out anywhere where I see things that are like a high priority or will have a high impact or might be a bit difficult. I want to address any questions that you all have about things that I've gathered. The idea here is just to like kind of do some table setting for us so that next week we're ready to dive in and start doing some of this stuff. Before that, any questions, concerns, comments? I didn't think there would be, but I wanted to make some room. Okay, so I've gathered some stuff in the planning issue here. Let me zoom in a little bit to make for the screen share purposes. I've gathered some things here. I labeled some issues with UX paper cuts and candidate 18.3 to grab them and put them into this GLQL table. There's 24 of those. We'll go through them. I'm not going to talk about every single one of them. We've only got half an hour here. I'm going to call out the ones I think are important. There are also a couple of other queues. I wanted to make sure it was easy for us to just like have anything to do and not feel blocked. So there are a couple of bug queues that anything we burn down there will help a lot as well. One of them is just plan bug UX. Obviously, that queue is a priority one for the plan team to burn down. And then there's also this work items post GA later. Those are mostly actually not bugs. They're small feature improvements, but those are things that didn't make it into the GA release, but the plan team would like to ameliorate about work items. So those are all really helpful things for them as well that we can just pick off. But let me go through some of these things that I gathered specifically. Um, After this call, I should have done this before, but it occurred to me like an hour ago. I'm going to do what Sasha did during the milestone that he ran, where I'm going to make another GLQO table here before this, where I manually call out a couple of like the higher priority or higher impact items. That's not reflected in this table right now. But some of these are like a bigger project. Some of them are just like a little thing to fix. So here's an example of a bigger project that I'm going to try to take on with Brett, which is iframe embedding. It's a huge customer request. Iframe embedding in Markdown would allow people to embed Figma files, YouTube videos, that sort of thing. This is technically feasible and not very difficult to implement. There has just been hesitancy from a security standpoint. So I'm going to see if I can get that hammered out this milestone. That would be a really nice improvement for Markdown. Um, Another one that's kind of a maybe a bigger project. This is something that Alex called forward. It's a rich text editor full screen editing mode. This is something that he thinks will really unlock some wiki editing capabilities. He's got some cool design for this. It needs maybe a little bit of design only because the design is old. But this is like kind of a part design, part implementation issue. Um, Let's see, what's another one that so moving the label management screen from Haml to View is another big project that I'd like to crack into on this. I'm going to take a first pass at this. I've actually personally never migrated one of our Haml pages to View, so this will be a learning experience for me. But this is one of those things where like the team can't prioritize it because it's not like a, shiny new car thing to put into release notes, but this is really going to unlock a lot of nice improvements to that experience because there are a lot of things that the plant team would like to do with label management that they can't right now because it is a Haml template. And then these are a couple of like follow-ons to that. I don't know whether or not I'll be able to get to them during this milestone. I put them in here just to have them in the queue in case there is room for them, but these are some of the nice improvements that can be made once it is transitioned to view. And by the way, please stop me and interrupt any questions or comments anybody has along the way.
Yeah, can I jump in real quick? On
Please.
the label list, I mean it's awesome that you're working on that. There is a community contributor that just like this last couple days started implementing archived labels. And so they're implementing them into the existing basically like Haml framework, and I provided some designs to them, basically trying to minimize their workload within the current construct because it's an interesting and useful idea, and I don't think they're gonna like rebuild this in Vue. So we might just need to see what the intersection of that work looks like so that they're
Interesting.
not doing something that's gonna then like throw you off if you're migrating stuff. So I'll find the issue for that. I'll link it up with you.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, good to know because that could totally be like a huge merge conflict one way or the other. And I'd rather not block them. I could wait until they've got that ironed out before diving in on that. Let's see. What are a couple of the other ones that are big? There are not a ton of them. This is a highly impactful one. Probably not a big one, but I tried playing around with this a little bit and it was tricky. So right now, when you are editing labels on a work item or a merge request, if one of the scoped labels if one of the labels in a scope is selected already and you select another one, then in the dropdown, we don't unselect any other scope labels. Obviously, when you click away or click apply, then the scoping works, right? And only the most recent one you selected is applied. But this is basically just an issue about like setting expectations for the user by making the dropdown show them the way it will actually be once they apply it with those scope labels. Um, this is just like kind of
That sounds, oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead,
Continue. I was
please.
gonna say that sounds like something we might not want to do. Like at first thought was if I'm selecting a bunch of labels in the dropdown, sometimes you accidentally click the wrong one, and I just don't know that we should automatically unselect the other scoped one. Like I view the dropdown like as an in progress kind of thing that
Mm,
doesn't necessarily need to update in real time until you close it. You know what I mean?
maybe that. I mean, that is interesting. Perspective. Like it's a conversation to have. I think the motivation behind this was basically that no matter what we show in the drop down, like last one wins when you're selecting scope labels in those drop downs. So you could go in and like click
Mm,
every label in the scope, but whatever one's the last one you click, that's the one of them that will get applied.
that makes sense. Hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of like show like basically just mirroring to the user, this is what will actually get applied. But there has been discussion in that issue about how to do it. So it could be unselect the other ones. It could be once you select one, the other ones are disabled until you unselect that one. That one's a little bit too much friction probably. But yeah, there's a bunch of discussion in there about that. So that's why it hasn't been done. Because there's like still kind of a bit to hammer out about that. If you have some interest in that though, I would encourage you to grab it. Or at least just
Yeah.
go comment in there to give your opinion.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Parity or toolbars and plain text rich text editors. This is just like adding in some buttons, I think, I think it's a little bit both directions. Because there are some things that we have in the rich text editor that we don't have in the plain text editor toolbar, and I think also vice versa. Um, so that one may be a bit tricky. I put it in there because if we can do it, it's nice. But I think that's going to require some collaboration, especially with Himanshu on that. He's like, I think, kind of like the guy who knows how TipTap works the best, the engine we use for a rich text editor. Um, this is another rich text editor one. Smart list exiting. It's something that Alex brought up. I think it's a really good one. It is an expectation users have. This is basically right now, if you're in the rich text editor and you start a bulleted list and you hit enter, you can just keep hitting enter and you keep making blank bulleted list items. But almost every markdown editor or rich text editor, once you've got a blank bullet and then you hit enter again, you exit the list. I think Google Docs does this, for example. So this is just about implementing that behavior. I think again, this is a thing where we would need to collaborate with Himanshu, maybe. It definitely is something TipTap related. It's possible that they even have behavior for this that you can configure. But that it just needs some investigation. Let's see, anything else that's like a big one to call out? Oh, this is also an impactful one. We purposely turned off full screen editing of Markdown in modals and drawers because like when the work item is opened in a drawer because it was causing problems. But it would be nice to re-implement that because it's not really expected on the user's part that they can't do it just because it's in a drawer. I personally actually don't know how many users even use the full screen thing, but this is like again like a feature parity thing. This is kind of I think part of like the work items follow-up stuff. Um,
Is this the comment on the little arrows where it goes
yes.
full screen, but it's still so small? Okay, yeah. If anyone picks that up, it's also completely broken on the comments on the changes tab of a merge request. If you open up a comment
Really?
on the changes tab, it breaks everything and there's nothing you can do except for like leave the page. It's pretty
That
funny.
sounds like the same problem that was basically what was happening and why we disabled it. And I looked at this briefly and I suspect it's just that the components like needs to be mounted to a different part of the DOM so that it's on top of everything. But it is kind of it's another it's not quite as complicated as the tip tap ones, but it's another one where it's just like this library that's kind of getting used in a bunch of places.
And maybe this is an opportunity to add tracking to these buttons. And if people are using it, can we make it better? It's awful. Yeah, like Chad
Yeah,
said, I don't
it's
know
super
anyone
ancient.
who uses it.
You would know better than I think any of us on the call, Annabelle, but I have a feeling that this is exactly the same way it's been since it was implemented.
Mhm. Yeah. And
All the
again, no
code
one used
for
it
it,
back then.
yeah, all the code for it is super ancient. It's all like why can't I think of it? That JavaScript library that everybody used to use. I can't believe I can't remember the name of it right now.
jQuery.
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 Thank you. Yeah, it's all like it's all like manually orchestrated in jQuery, like open this thing, mount this thing. So yeah, I think it would be great actually to add some tracking. It could be, shout out to Austin. It could be a nice opportunity to unship something if nobody's even using this thing and we're just maintaining it.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, we don't have a rich text version of it. I don't know if
that's
the
true.
team plans to ever do that, but now that
Well,
the
yeah, that's
like
one of the things in
default.
here is Alex wants to be able to do full screen rich text
Oh, okay.
editor.
Yeah, all right.
But I don't think it would be completely separate anyway. Like it's the same functionality, but it would be a completely different thing. Um, So those are kind of, I think, like the highest impact ones. The rest of these are all also impactful, but they're like a little bit more quality of life. So like warn you when you're like hitting the work item title max length instead of just letting you like hit your head on it when you try to save and we show you an error. Or like when you create the modal to create a work item it does a silly thing, I think, because it's like waiting for a GraphQL response, but like it'll autofocus the project dropdown instead of autofocusing the title field. So that's like annoying. That would be a nice quality of life one to fix. This one, I personally would really enjoy this, adding a copy branch name action to the work items development dropdown. Um, would just save some clicks for people who want to use that ability to create a branch or copy the branch name. Um, And this is like another like little layout one that's like nice to have. Nothing's broken. It just doesn't really look very good. Like the title is the full width of the modal when you create a work item, but there is space reserved on the right hand side of the part where the form is for a sidebar. So the title is long, but the rest of it is like not, and it just kind of looks weird. So there's some stuff like that. So these are the ones I've called out specifically. Many of these are in one of these two queues. But I called these out because I was like, these would be nice improvements. Some of these are like higher impact or a more severe pain for the user. Any other questions, comments on these ones?
I think you had some sense of like just our team makeup and it's ones that might be interesting to different people. Did you have any of those kind of thoughts for any of these?
Um, Maybe, yeah. I think the rich text editor full screen one, Annabelle, I think you might find interesting just because it is kind of one of those ones that like there's still some design decisions to be made, and then also its implementation. Um, I don't,
Yep,
none
that
of these
sounds
are,
good.
none of these are necessarily like a thing that needs a CSS wizard per se. So Julia, I don't know if there's anything that like catches your eye. But I think anything we can grab will be good. Oh, I should also call out, there's like one outlier in here. This is not related. Improve the discoverability of runners for a project. This had those two labels on it already, and it is assigned to Miguel and Sasha. I asked Sasha if that's something he actually plans on doing, but I don't think he got back to me before he went on vacation. So I don't know if that's actually really happening or not, but it's not related to the work that we're planning here. It just happens to also have those two labels already, and I didn't want to go edit that issue on them. So it's unclear to me whether or not Sasha will actually be working on that. In terms
And chat, which ones do you want to work on?
Yeah, so I was about to say the like two that I'm going to jump on are the iframe thing, which I imagine is going to be much more conversation and coordination than code change. I expect code changes for that to happen later in the milestone if they can happen. The main task there is like do a little bit of cat herding to be like, okay, can we actually do this or not? If we can't do it, let's close this and explain why we can't do it. I'm hoping that we can do it because I think it would be a really nice UX improvement. So I'm going to work on that. I'm also going to start in on migrating the label management, but it sounds like I should wait until that community contribution is wrapped up. So I'm not going to do that right away. Otherwise, I haven't particularly grabbed anything yet. I'm gonna assign myself. I've showed the assignee field here so that we can know if like someone's already jumped on something. Like for example, it looks like Ben King grabbed this wiki one, which is nice. So maybe we won't need to do that. Maybe that'll get done anyway.
Yeah,
Uh,
it looks like he already merged this.
oh really? Oh,
Yeah.
even better. Nice. Well, then I will take these labels off.
I have a question, and I'm now curious how long this has been like that. When you create a new issue in GitLab, the sidebar shows up on the create page now
Yes.
instead of below that. Is that new?
That is new. That's part
Yeah,
of what this one is about.
that was like, well, new like 3 months ago, probably.
Oh, the next screenshot in it.
It's sad. Okay, well, I really like it. I was just we were talking about doing that for merge requests, and don't think that's happened yet. But I was going to suggest it for issues, and I don't need to because it looks great.
Yeah, I still there's things on the create page that I still are like, this is kind of weird. Like the similar issues is just the same component that's been there for how probably since it was first created. I don't have any particular suggestions for that, but it's a little bit strange that it like pops in and it's kind of unstyled. But yeah, overall, I think it works
Uh,
nice.
We
would
can
would
we
you
can take a
comment
look
that
at
in
that.
this issue, Nick? Actually, that could be an interesting thing to look into.
Yeah,
Okay.
which issue?
Oh, in just in this 18.3
Oh,
planning issue.
okay. Yeah. I thought this was a wiki page, but you're right, it is an issue.
Oh no. Actually, it would have been nice to use Wiki. That's an interesting. We should put that in the parking lot. That's an interesting suggestion is to use Wiki for these planning instead of issues per se. Um, but yeah, this is just an issue that we're using for planning for this.
Maybe just the create page in general. Like, I don't know if any of these metadata options in the sidebar can be turned off, but ours is longer than the description input text area thing, which is fine. It just doesn't look very nice. So maybe just some, I don't know, maybe we could make the description longer. That would also help with people that want to use
Well,
a giant
that's
full
a
screen one.
that's a thing as well, is that there have been requests, and I actually had an MR that was in production on Canary for a little while and then had to get rolled back about making the Markdown editor like vertically resizable. There are very annoying reasons that it breaks things, but that is something that
Mm,
people want as well as the ability to have like a taller editor. So
mm.
if you want to go poke around at that, people would like that. There is an issue somewhere about it. I didn't include it here, but
That's annoying. It's resizable on GitHub.
yeah.
I
No,
never
it was
noticed
briefly
that.
resizable for us, and then there
Nice
were
job.
some reasons that it broke things, and I was like, ah, crap. Okay, I got to roll it back.
Darn.
Yeah.
And wasn't there an issue somewhere, Nick, you might know, like it might not have been for issues, it might have been for something else, but someone was poking around with the idea of moving the create issue button to the top somewhere so that like as you're writing, let's say it's resizable and it's getting really long, and then you can put the actual save button or create button was at the top of the form. I don't know if we want to do that. I just remember
Yeah.
seeing it somewhere.
No, I don't remember seeing that. It is something that there was a merge request that had it as if you're in the full page view, it is a sticky like footer. So something to know about that page is it's moving into a modal like relatively soon, similar to Epic's, so that we can support things like creation from like boards and stuff without kicking you off the board. Like a full creation flow. Um, so in those cases you'd have like the modal footer like sticky buttons, and we want to do something similar for the full page view. I can't remember specifically why we didn't do it. I think there were some like styling issues that I wanted the engineers to resolve before we move that forward, but that's kind of the design intent. I'll link that issue in here as well.
So any changes to the standalone form, sorry, standalone page issue creation form, is that okay to touch, or is
Yeah.
that kind of be like, okay,
It's all like the way that's built is it's literally just a modal that pulls in the rest of the components.
okay.
So any changes should apply to both places. It shouldn't matter. But any sort of layout related to like the save buttons, that's the only place where there's going to be like a little bit of difference, since
Mhm.
I think I could be wrong, but I think that's just using the modal footer.
I think you're right.
Speaking of that point, are there other greens or templates or areas around plan that the paper cuts team could poke around and look at?
Most of the ones that I know of, we already kind of put in this list.
Great. Mhm.
I do know, like, we just launched internally this status feature, and we'll be going GA with that either later today or tomorrow. It's
Oh,
possible there'll be things we find related to that. Certainly if you see them, like those might be good opportunities, but for the moment, I think Chad's already helped actually close quite a few of those. So there's none I can think of, but we might find some in the next week or so.
and what was the story I was typing? What was the name of that one?
That's the status. Yeah, this
Oh,
like
yeah, 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 yeah.
widget there
Yeah.
at the top.
Statuses. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. What we're at the time for this. But if there are any other questions or comments that you all have, drop them in the comments here, or let's have the conversation in our like org public Slack channel, like the GUX paper cuts, so that other people can see it as well. The notes that we've got from this call, I'm going to put into the comments in the issue, just so that like other folks can access it. I'm also going to share the recording of this with the Plan team as well, so that anybody else who wants some context on this from Plan um, can check it out. Any final thoughts, questions, comments before we hop off?
So the
Do
only thing
you,
it's like
oh,
you mentioned, like waiting on the label migration to view on the community contribution. I think there's probably more work than you might expect with the view migration, because there's like back end stuff. So it might be worth digging in, at least in like starting some of the like
Oh,
foundational
interesting.
stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
because it's not using GraphQL.
And some of the things that we have on that page today don't have an equivalent GraphQL resolver.
Right.
So like
Yeah,
uh,
that, well, put this in the bucket of things that we wish we had a back-end paper cuts person for.
you can look
Mhm.
at my MR from like last year and get maybe like a sense of, I think I got like a third of the way through, and it was like, wow, this is gonna take forever.
Yeah.
So
Well, if nothing else, maybe this will be an interesting opportunity to put Duo through its paces and see if it can help me figure some of
for
that
sure.
out.
Yeah.
Annabelle, what were you about to say?
for planning and tracking purposes, do you want to only have issues like the note that Nick just put on the issue is like the work item creation and, just in general styling changes in that area? Do you want to create a separate issue for that and add it, or does it matter?
That's a good question. I think that our MO as a team has been that like we're working off of existing issues and sometimes we're just creating an MR based on a thing that we know about. I think that we could do that, like, just make sure that like always the MR is like linked to this planning issue, right? Because then we'll at least kind of be able to see the connections there. Ideally there would be like a known issue for it. If you want to, I certainly won't stop you. But like, I don't think we need to add that as an extra layer for this specific milestone. It's something for us to think about process-wise, I think, in general.
That's good. And then one random thing, Nick, have you ever seen like the comment that you just put on the issue? I was like, oh, maybe I'll make it into an issue. Have you ever had a feature request that's like
I've
convert
thought of that
comment to
before.
issue?
Because you can do that on an MR, right?
If it's a thread,
If it's a thread.
you can create an issue to close the thread, which pulls in like the first comment or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have a request for that, but yeah, it's I wonder if there's a way to consolidate those features into some sort of like I think we do have an issue for like creating a resolve thread. Like basically doing the same thing you can do in a merge request, but since we have resolvable threads and issues, like that could be one way to do that.
Cool. And then I saw somewhere you mentioned that threads are going to be getting some updates as well in terms of like whether or not they can be resolved or whether the way that they're styled, because we're working on that too in code review where uh, there's just all kinds of different ways you can resolve a thread and they look different depending on if the reply has been deleted and all that kind of stuff. Do you have
Yeah.
a link to that anywhere?
The only change that I'm aware of in work items is that we want to make single comments resolvable. So there wouldn't be any design changes. It would just
Okay.
be that you get the check, on a single comment. So
And
that's
nothing else would change.
at the moment that's the plan, but I'm kind of open to ideas there if there's better ways that we can sort of consolidate features across merge requests and work items. But yeah, that's the idea, is like we would just change the check. I'll find that issue and link it in the
Would be nice. That's a
Slack
very nice
issue.
improvement.
Cool. Well, thank you for going over a couple of minutes, and I will share the recording. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a good milestone. I think expectations have been set with planned folks that like none of this is like on a roadmap. This is not like promised deliverable stuff. All of this is stuff that for them was like kind of a nice to have improvement. I mean, the bug queues are a separate thing. So I think anything we can do is going to help out. I also posted, sorry to make us go over a little bit more. I posted in the front end channel for Plan this morning, telling them like, hey, in the past we've accidentally like kind of like pushed the capacity of like the engineers in the areas where we're working by like making them do a bunch of MR reviews. I wanted to make you aware that we would be doing this. I gave them a couple of options for like how they might want to interact with us on those. I think that we should, I'll let you know if they get back to me with other requests, but I think we should just default to just using the reviewer roulette um, for reviews and not necessarily go specifically to a plan person for this, especially these ones that are based on an existing issue. I think, maybe CC Nick, if you're okay with it, maybe we could like CC you on these as we go, especially the ones that are not tied to an existing issue, just to make sure that like, seen it and kind of given it a thumbs up. But I don't think that we're gonna do the like, the way we do with like Raul, where it was like he's gonna review all the stuff that we do for package in that milestone.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I'm generally like close enough to the front end stuff that they're doing that if it is something that's like, wait, maybe this FE should see it from our team, I can link them in at that point.
Great.
For
Okay.
stuff that's in project management. All the wiki stuff is more on Alex and his team.
Yeah, and I think that they, historically they've been very enthusiastic to participate in anything we're doing in their area. So I think that that will probably continue. I know that Matthew and Alex are both pretty pumped for us to do anything with them during this milestone as well. Okay. Thank you for staying over with me a little bit. I'm gonna stop sharing and have a good one.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, everybody.